All right, inviting everyone in.
Hi, a very good afternoon to everyone. Just checking to hear that my sound is loud and clear.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thanks, Sun Long, for confirming. Having actually a bit of internet connection issues at the moment, so I had to walk out of my office. I'm currently under the hot sun, so hopefully it doesn't rain on me at the moment. But thank you, everyone, for being here, and a big welcome to our first COASTAR Knowledge Sharing Webinar. Today, we're going to be talking about a very interesting topic called urban planning and coastal sustainability. So before we get started, let me just say that we are recording this session in order to make this available at a later date for wider dissemination for those that are interested but not able. So we're just going to walk through a few housekeeping slides that we'll go through. So firstly, in order to take smooth session, please mute your microphone when you're not speaking. I think at the moment we could choose to keep our camera off, but a later session during the Q&A, if you do decide to ask a question live, you can feel free to turn on your camera. So please use the chat box, okay, during the presentation to put your comments or any questions that you wish to address to our speaker later, okay, and then we will be addressing this during the Q&A session. So as I mentioned earlier, this event will be recorded, and we will make this available to the participants through a shared link later. And this will also be hosted on our COASTAR website, and the link will be presented later. Also, at the end of the presentation, we will just be having a super short poll-based survey for all of you, so that you can give us just a quick feedback on how we did for our first webinar sharing. That way, we can improve our future offerings from COASTAR. And with that, I would like to begin by doing a quick introduction to what COASTAR is about. So COASTAR is really short for Empowering Malaysia's Future Leaders in Coastal Ocean Actionable and Sustainable Teaching and Research. That's a mouthful. But really, this is quite an interesting program. Next slide, which is being funded by British Council, and it is a fellowship program. Next slide, Sun Long. Okay, just checking. Is everyone still able to hear me at the moment? If yes, could you give me a thumbs up? Because wonderful, thank you. Because I'm seeing that the slides look frozen at the moment. Okay, so we're all good. So this a fellowship program that is under the mentorship of several multidisciplinary researchers from Edinburgh Napier University in Scotland, Universiti Malaya, and Universiti Sains Malaysia. And we have actually a number of fellows that were selected through the fellowship program. And this will be a year-long program that is focused on empowering of and capacity building, particularly related to coastal sustainability issues. Next slide. So just an overview of the researchers that we have on our team, in case you're wondering what our faces look like, because it does get a little bit difficult when we're doing the engagement virtually. Yes, there we have it. Okay, so on the screen, we have our team. So Professor Mark Huxham is the UK principal investigator. So he's from Edinburgh Napier University. Myself representing the principal investigator from the Malaysian side. So we have Dr. Goh Hong Ching, Dr. Anita Ogilvy, Dr. Helena Varkey, Dr. Groanye Barkis, Dr. Jillian Uy, Dr. Chi Sui Yin, and Dr. Lisa very one of mentors. And I also wanted to showcase the faces of our fellows as well, who are actually, most of them should be on this call. So we have selected our fellows that are primarily, well, we call them generally the early career researchers. So they are our postgraduate students, as well as those that have graduated with PhD and are holding a career, academic career. So I noticed we don't have the slides anymore, right? Well, yeah, I had wanted to show the faces of our fellows, but we could save them for slightly later. But anyway, I wanted to move on to introducing our speaker. If we can hear up on the slide, which I'm guessing all of you have seen it anyway when you registered for this particular event. So I'm very proud to present our first speaker who will kickstart the knowledge webinar sharing, Dr. Goh Hong Ching, who is a very good personal friend, and she's also a town planner. Well, I'll let her speak for herself, but she will kickstart this sharing session focusing on urban planning for coastal sustainability. And with this, I'll pass the time over to Hong Ching.
Yep. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, Hong Ching.
Thanks, Amy, for the brief introductions. And again, it's it's a pleasure to be here and then try to share what we do in urban plannings then. So I will already then share my screen. Yeah. Okay, so today's my talk will be to introduce urban planning, but of course, right, in this context for COASTAR program, we would like to link it, right, with the coastal region then. So at the moment, I'm attached to the Departments of Urban and Regional Planning, Faculty of Built Environment in Universiti Malaya. So the structure of the talk today is basically, right, I put it into the chunks and 3 sections. The first is about coastal regions. Second is on urban plannings, what planners do. And last, but the most important one, of course, is about the urban planning for coastal sustainability. And sorry for the typo. First, when we start talking about coastal region, which normally, right, already link, yeah, the terrestrial area with the sea. And this is the quotes that I really like. I mean, this is my own quote, actually. That's right. How holistic and integrated we can be in our development planning if we focus merely on land. And this is something that I ask myself as an urban planner. And this really reads like, if we see land is land, ocean is ocean, we forgot that, yep, we only have one Earth. Coastal region, just a very generous introductions, which I think most of us are very aware. Yeah, it refers to a narrow interface zone between the marine and also the terrestrial area where large and growing human populations and even economic activities concentrates. At the same time, this is the place where you see there's a wide range of ecosystem provided. Yeah, this is the most, for me, this is the most fascinating area when we talk about physical or when we talk about the space-wise. Yeah. At the same time, yeah, despite of all these very interesting activities and exciting activities that take place, yeah, it also we see, yeah, as well as the cumulative, yeah, impacts, conflicts and potential ones, as well as the synergies of land and sea are actually observed. Yeah, and we need for a better planning and management. Why? If you take a look on how we on land, yeah, associate with our ocean, the first is that, right, it is already ironic enough when we talk about why we call Earth. Yeah, while we are talking about, yeah, more than 2/3 of the surface of Earth is actually ocean, but we call it Earth. Yeah. Take a look on in terms of the statistics about how we, yeah, human, yeah, be associated. First is that if you take a look, yeah, Earth's surface is the largest is ocean. At the same time, however, yeah, a lot of people are actually, yeah, living in the coastal area, yeah, with, we are not talking about, like, in terms of the population size, but at the same time about the risk that, right, is already, yeah, we are observing, yeah, and experiencing. That is, yeah, this area, this coastal area are less than 10 meters, right, above the sea level. At the same time, yeah, that's approximately, yeah, 2.4 billion people, yeah, which is 40%, yeah, of the world population live within the 100 kilometers of the coast. And this is where, that's why people who live, yeah, by the coast, and many of them are actually live in coastal cities or a place called city. Yeah. Oceans and coastal, marine resources are very important for people who live in coastal region, yeah, which representing, right, at least 1/3 of the global population. If we take a look on how coastal area has evolved in terms of the activities. In the past, we might always, right, start thinking about coastal area is where we go. It's more for recreational activities. It's more nature. Yeah. In terms of its land use. Yeah. But if you take a look now, that what happens when we have urbanization that takes place in coastal region, and how cities, especially in the coastal region, have actually, right, very significant impacts, yeah, on in coastal region. First of all, take a look on how cities actually, right, are significant until it is not able to be ignored in a way, yeah, regardless whether it's a positive impacts or implications that it has on us or the adverse one. First, cities, yeah, representing, yeah, contributing 70% of the GDP, and at the same time, yeah, it's actually, right, consume or contribute to more than, yeah, half of the global energy consumption. Greenhouse gases wise, yeah, it contributes, right, more than 2/3, and in terms of global waste, 70%. Even though cities only occupy approximately 2% of the total land. Yeah. So this is how things have developed when we talk about cities. And then we start thinking about, right, in coastal region. Yeah. Coastal region where we have the marine fragile ecosystems and how the development on land actually have the impact directly, especially when we talk about global waste and the very it's no longer emerging, but it's already here. The existing, right, issues of plastic pollution, and more specifically, right, how this plastic pollution actually have encroached into our marine environment. Yeah. So, in the context of urban development, yeah, we have this new approach, yeah, for UN Habitat, yeah, which is called the New Urban Agenda, yeah, First, it focused on the inequality, prosperity, then right how to strengthen prevention and responsible crisis, and how impact things like the coast. If you take a look on the diagram on the right-hand side, yeah, this is how we map, for instance, right, as we know, for the first time under Sustainable Development Goals, where we see some of the sustainable cities and communities, right, is being, yeah, is put on board, yeah. This is different from what we saw, for instance, right, where we have the Millennium Development Goals, yeah, and this is how we see that, for instance, right, yeah, SDG 14 is being associated, yeah, with sustainable cities and communities. And one thing is that, right, even, yeah, here we see right, the environmental resources and resilience, that is where we see the life below waters, yeah, SDG 14 is being part. At the same time, we also see that how these resources is not only for protection, but at the same time, how it can contribute to the economic growth. Yeah. So this slide basically, so I would like to show you about right how the goals, yeah, at the global level have evolved and then diversified, yeah, not to only include, yeah, the basic needs that we need to achieve, but at the same time, widening the scope as well as deepening as well in terms of the what we need to meet, yeah, at the end of this period at 2035. Yep. Future coast. This is what that right has been put online. You see a lot on how sea level rise will do, yeah, to coastal cities. Yeah. How we see coastal region now because of urbanization, because of the development that take place. Yeah. And what would happen to cities? What will happen, right? Yeah. More importantly, to us human who live, yeah, near to the sea. If you take a look, right, closer, yeah, to what we have, right, in Malaysia. The impact of coastal reclamations in Malaysia, to be more specific, yeah, we know that in Malaysia, we have this long shoreline, yeah, in Peninsula alone, right, it's more than 2,000 kilometers. Sarawak and Sabah, yeah, have 1,000 and 1.7, yeah, thousand, yeah, kilometers respectively. The key characteristics that we see is that by this area, yeah, at the coast have served, yeah, as the for its ecosystem services that it provides, yeah, through the habitat ecosystems, yeah, for instance, coral reef, we are talking about seagrass, bed, yeah, but at the same time, we also see the competitions of land and sea resources and space by a diverse range, yeah, of stakeholders, yeah, and often with a wide range, unfortunately, yeah, always conflicting interests. And densely, this area definitely is densely populated and become more and more popular sites for urban development. Yeah, this is highly associated with, to the issues of land scarcity that we are facing. Yeah, especially so in the existing area. More about the coastal development issues, for instance, right, you can find in this report, yeah, prepared by Sahabat Alam, yeah, on the impacts of coastal reclamations in Malaysia. Yeah. Basically, in terms of the impacts, yeah, can be divided into the broad one would be 3 to 4. One of it, yeah, maybe to social scientists, this may be one of the most significant one when we talk about how it actually have a social and cultural impacts on the human, yeah, on the populations of closer enough to mention that, right, the local community, the coastal communities, yeah, because of land reclamation. This is also, the other angles if we talk about land reclamations and also the impacts, when we start looking from the environmental impact itself, how it actually damage, the ecosystem and at the same time the species. And here also what has been highlighted is about the cost of land reclamation have not been fully understood. And this may include, for instance, the loss of heritage, the loss of recreational area, for instance, right? In the past, when we have reclamation land, and in the past, it's supposed to be, it was a sea or beach, but now no longer. So if you take a look on urbanization, any developments, the process of development always starts with planning. So what is planning? According to Sir Peter Hall, that is the initial versions of this book. Actually, this is the 6th edition. When he talked about planning, he said, planning is extremely ambiguous, and difficult word to define. Planners of all kinds think that they know what it means. It refers to all the work, that they do. The difficulties is that they do all sorts of different things. And so they mean different things by the word. Is the word, not the word. Planning seems to be all things to all people. So in this regards, when we start linking it with development, we actually talk about urban planning. What is urban planning? Broadly, urban planning also refers to urban and regional planning. You might heard about, right, town and country planning, city planning, and depending on more specific geographical context, it may also refer as rural planning. So basically, right, anything that is quite spatial is related to urban planning, but urban planning not only doing the spatial planning, and it's also that, right, through spatial planning that it actually aims to achieve social, economic, and also environmental objective. John Radcliffe, for instance, this is the easiest one. I remember that when I was a student, I love this definition because, right, in the exam questions, that's where that the lecturer will ask. When we were in the first year, what is urban planning or town planning? How you define? And this is so easy to remember. Town planning is concerned with providing the right site at the right time, in the right place for the right people. It seems that everything is so right. But we know that by not all the times that by these idealistic definitions is actually can be applied in practice. But this is something that we do. Louis Kleber, who is also very prominent, urban planners, define town planning as the arts and science of ordering the use of land, and siting of building and communication routes so as to secure maximum practicable degree of economy and convenience and beauty. If you take a look in terms of these definitions, it actually, right, it's so much like being associated with land. So this is how, right, urban planning starts, right, when we talk about only land. It is always about land, land that matters. John Stephenson, however, have defined planning, right, into 2 categories, which I really like, because if you take a look on his definitions, the first is development planning, which is, we are talking about the much bigger area. But at the same time, he also say that planning also falls into this category. The second one, development controls, which, right, we are talking of, it's almost like the micromanage of how city works within the city itself. And this is where, that's why I put the pictures here. For instance, here we have, right, this is falls under the second category, development control, placemaking. However, when we have this bird's eye view about how city operates, how it links with the water body in the much bigger context, then we do realize that this falls into the first category, that is the development planning. Just a very brief sharing about evolutions of town planning in Malaysia. So if you take a look, for many of us that maybe we may not make aware, is that the earliest form of the local authority who actually perform the town planning's duty actually was established in Penang, in Georgetown. Then that's in 1919 already, the first town planning committee for Kuala Lumpur was established. And it's a very important milestone that we have here is that by 1921, Charles Reid was appointed as the first government town planners of Malaya. And for some of you that may have been to Bukit Fraser, for instance, Fraser's Hill, you know that you have to pass this town called Kuala Kubu Baru. And that is where he materialized the concept of garden cities, and it is actually the first garden cities in Malaysia. Putrajaya is a garden cities, is developed based on the garden cities concept, but it was not the first one. And of course, you have until, if you take a look on 1957, that is where the power planning system was reorganized upon the independence. And then in 1961, when we have the ordinance, 1966, that is a revision at 66, that's the first draft of the planning ordinance. Then in 1976, that is where we have the first ever Town and Country Planning Act 1976. It might sound a bit old-fashioned, unfortunately, is that Town and Country Planning Act, the terms town and country has been used, or we actually follows the UK system, until now. In the US, for instance, basically you use cities. A town of 5,000 population is also considered as cities. So it just depends on the, I would say, geographical context. That's how it is being termed. So in terms of planning registration in Malaysia, basically, there's 4 legislations that we have to observe. In Peninsular Malaysia, that is the first one where we have this Town and Country Planning Act 1976, Act 172. Then at the same time, we also have the KL Federal Territory Act, 1982. So if you take a look on the planning registration, to realize that KL actually have a separate one. Wow, for instance, some of you might ask that, how about Putrajaya then? Putrajaya actually is using the Town and Country Planning Act, Act 172, rather than the Federal Territory Act, okay? And at the same time, we have also Sabah Town and Country Planning Ordinance, Sabah Cap 141, Chapter 141, and then Sarawak Town and Country Planning Ordinance, 1952, or we is more popularly known, or more known as Sarawak Chapter 87. So this basically is to show you, just to map out how planning framework work in Malaysia. So if you take a look, that is how it trickled down. We have the national planning, then we have the regional and state planning, as well as the local level, and of course we have the implementations. So for the federal level, that is where we have the Malaysia 5-year Malaysia plan, Rancangan Malaysia. How this is being associated with national physical plans is that we see national physical plan actually visualize what can be translated physically. And this is that then linked with very important documents also for urban planners, the National Urbanization Policy, as well as the Rural Planning Policy. At the regional and state level, we have regional plan, we have the state structure plan, and sectoral policy and strategies. Some of you may not be familiar, are not familiar with regional plan. For instance, if you know about Iskandar region, so Iskandar, it is considered as a regional planning unit then. So it's not fall under the state, all right? And we have the local planning, where we have the local plan as well as the special area plan. All this, if you take a look, they falls under what you call that, the Act 172. And at the same time, if you take a look on the Constitution, town planning has been listed as what we call the concurrent list. Yeah, concurrent list means that, right, it's a shared federal and also state list, yeah, responsibility wise. Okay, some of you might also, yeah, familiar or have, it's not something that is totally stranger to you, about the what we call the National Physical Plan for Coastal Zone, yeah, Central Forest Fire Action Plan. So this has been actually, right, clearly listed in Act 172. Some of the major developments in town plannings, yeah, after 1976. I wouldn't go into this part because this is basically trying to talk about how things have changed and then being what you call that detail, yeah. But if you take a look on the left-hand side, right-hand side, the major, yeah, amendments that have been made, yeah, to this Town and Country Planning Act, right, is the amendments, right, back in 1995. And the key factors that contributing, or I would say the key drivers actually, right, contributing to this amendment is because of the Highland Towers disaster, yeah, in 1993, yeah. So it's environmental, right, related issues that, right, trigger for that amendment. The next ones that is more recent, which is not that recent as well, is already 2 decades, is that the amendments that have been made in 2001, where regional planning has been added, yeah, into the documents as well, yeah, the legal documents, to actually try have a better coordinations of development, especially when we talk about interstate developments there. Okay. So these are some of the planning documents that we use. Yep. So here we have the National Physical Plan. So now we already have the RSM, Rancangan Fizikal Negara 3. And at the same time, we have here the Selangor State Structure Plan. Yep. And also the local plan. And we have here Rancangan Kawasan Khas. Yeah. All right. So for the state structure plan, it's a broad strategy physical plan covered entire state. Yeah, and it's reviewed every 5 years. One major characteristic of state structure plans is that it is actually mapping out the resource for planning, for development planning. So that is something that's very, very important. Resource planning, built up area, non-built up area. Then we have, right, the local level, district local plans, yeah, and details plans covering the district, previously covering, right, parts of the city, yeah, area review, also 5 year, and action area plan, which is a more localized plans, yeah, for project implementation. So how urban planning can contribute to coastal sustainability? I think in short is that I try my best to categorize into like 6 categories here, or 6 main chunks that we can see how urban planning can contribute based on what has been provided, right, legally. At the same time is that how can we move forward to make sure that urban planning is relevant to the most current development and contribute to what we call sustainable cities and sustainable communities? First is that start thinking about how urban planners can actually collaborate, yeah, with the coastal cities manager, yeah, to think something out of the box. Why? Because if you take a look on urban planning, yeah, it has been always, right, being land oriented. To work with coastal cities is where that the cities manager, they have the insights, yeah, into the dynamics of this interface then between development and conservation, especially if you are talking about the marine, right, biodiversity, which is very rich, yeah, for Malaysia. Yeah, and this is where that I start thinking, applying the concept of Maslow motivation theory, which is applied at the moment, right, at the individual level. How can we apply and extend it, yeah, to the institutional level? The second is on rethinking the present ranking of criteria of livable cities and sustainable cities. if you take a look on the present ranking criteria, we do realize that most of the cities that comes top 10 in the list, is always are always cities from developed countries. How that would change, for instance, if you start talking about the baseline and how much of progress that are made by the cities. That would help coastal cities, for instance, if they have made a progress in terms of achieving much better performance in contributing to a city which is livable, contributing to a city which is sustainable in coastal region. Next is that to explore the potential of creating marine biosphere reserve, linking marine protected area with cities development as the integrated units of planning, rather than to see land is land and also the sea is sea. And within this context, that is where blue economies can, for instance, can be explored. It helps in the economic growth. At the same time, the net zero initiative, which we have not so far explored much about blue carbon. At the same time, how circular economy and nature-based solutions could contribute to the coastal sustainability by having urban planning have what you call that, a role to play in coastal sustainability. Then to implement and enforce the impact assessment and monitoring. If you take a look in terms of the current practice that we have now, we have the environmental impact assessment, we have the social impact assessment in place. However, this would be very much project-based. How we can see the development planning in a much bigger context, and that can actually conform or at least try to conform to sustainable indicators. That is where the strategic environmental assessments that can come into picture and being applied as the state structure plans level as well as the regional plans level. At the same time, also thinking about how can we actually apply the concept of resiliency and sustainability in coastal development? Again, this is about is land and sea interface. It is not only about land when we talk about resiliency and sustainability in coastal development. This development is not about modernization. And at the same time, how actually academics especially can contribute to recognize and put in actions the quadruple helix approach, focusing on multidisciplinarity as well as interdisciplinarity. Some people might ask, for instance, planners, is that different from what you study? Is that different from what you study in geography? Very simple explanations that we could have, but of course, people would argue about it, is that geographies analyze and planners do. But then to put into action, sometimes that you have to take at least one step back and start thinking, has things gone right? Since we are seeing the future, seeing the present now, what can be done back then, or at least what can we correct now for a better future? These are some of the examples that in urban planning which already have it is already in place. First is what we call the urban sustainability assessment. Murni-net. It is an approach that measures and evaluates the sustainability of cities and its affiliates using cities indicators. At the moment, in Malaysia, we have a total of 150 more than 150 local authorities that get involved and participated. This has been started 20 years ago, with partnership with many agencies. So this is where we see how SDGs is being actually mapped out, and how it leads to the the formulations of the indicators. However, if you take a look on what is available at the moment, is we have no poverty, good health and well-being, then like clean water and sanitation. Yeah, then we have like affordable and clean energy, or decent work and economic growth, then climate action, life on land, peace, justice, and also strong institutions are being mapped out. This is missing. Yeah, but with that already indicators for urban sustainability, for coastal cities is that if we can add this, yeah, a very specific, what you call that, set of indicators, yeah, to map out, yeah, our evaluation in coastal city based on SDGs 14. That is where that we can actually, yeah, contribute, yeah, or at least to see coastal sustainability as the guiding principles that we would like to, yeah, work on. Here, if you take a look, in fact, yeah, even though when we talk about MurniNet, which is developed and by Plan Malaysia, yeah, Town and Country Departments of Malaysia, at the higher level, we already have EPU actually map this out in terms of the SDGs. And to be more specific, is that we see, yeah, SDG 14, life below water, actually appear under the pillar number 5 and also number 6, not only in terms of enhancing the environmental sustainability, but at the same time, actually to strengthen the economic growth. And this is the parts that have not been really being explored yet in urban planning, especially when we talk about urban development. Yeah. So at the same time, we also have already what we call the data analytics for smart cities. Malaysia Urban Observatory. This is actually the big data analytics. It is actually a dashboard that serve as the what you call center for data analysis. Yeah. Again, how the urban data, for instance, can be incorporated, and the dimension on SDG 14 can be actually incorporated. Yeah, take a look on it now. Is that the most recent projects, which is regional based, is actually the Iskandar. Yeah, IMOU. Yeah, IMUO. Yeah, Malaysia Iskandar Malaysia Urban Observatory. Yeah, which is a project sorry, it's a project it is a project by Iskandar Edinburgh, as well as UNDP and also Mampu. Here, for instance, it is already in place when we talk about sustainable cities for well-being, which is the goal of the National Physical Plan. At the same time, for the the National Urbanization Policy, as well as achieving a resilient and livable nation for the National Physical Plan. So what we are saying is that at the national level, this has been laid. Yeah, it's very clear. However, the concerns is of course always about our urbanization targets. We know that that's a cap, but how can we actually make sure that's happen? What monitoring and audits that have to be done. Take a look on what I mentioned as well just now about to explore the potential establishment of the Marine Biosphere Reserve, which at the moment in Malaysia, we don't have one yet. Yeah, coastal cities, for instance, the one in Plymouth actually, already have this model, which is called the City Marine Park. Yeah, something that is really fascinating. And I was thinking that linking back to my first statement about what urban planning can contribute to coastal sustainability is that how this, what can we learn? How can we think out of the box? Yeah. Next, about here in coastal sustainability, about coastal sustainability in New York, for instance. Yeah. The architecture firm has already designed this concept for the floating city. Yeah, this is actually to respond, to the extreme weather event and the rising sea levels. Are we there yet? Yeah, this is already been launched last year the New York City's right first ever floating park. Yeah. And of course, at the same time, yeah, that is already in place. The low carbon city, how can we incorporate like the blue here? Yeah, we already have the green. Same things for the disaster risk mapping. Yeah, is to incorporate the blues there. Yeah, same things as well for what we already have, right? Yeah, which has been published by Plan Malaysia, or we call it Town and Country Planning Departments Malaysia, about the green neighborhood. How we then incorporate, right? Yeah, SDG 14, the blue icons again here, and to unlock not only the green but also the blue space benefits, yeah, in our cities, especially the coastal cities. Yeah. Challenges, however, in urban planning is that those are the potential. Yeah. However, that is always right. Things much more works that need to be done. First is that if you take a look on the federal and also the state, yeah, shared responsibility of urban planning, and because of this, right, it can be in a way right become fractured, yeah, rather than integrated. Yeah. At the same time, there needs to be a change in terms of the mindset and mentality for urban planners as well. Urban planning and its relations, right? It's always about land matters. It's always about land, land, and land. Yeah. And as either, yeah, the existing development plans practice still relevant, and are we actually talking about resource protection when we talk about environmental protection? We have a law on environmental protection, but resource protection, if you take a look, because of this physical form, yeah. And this is how that urban planning through state structure plans, for instance, or even national physicals can actually play a significant role. Last but not least is also about, right, the existing, right, local participations, which, right, the engagement has not been that meaningful yet, especially when we talk about, right, inclusive design, inclusive planning per se. So these are some of the we have, yeah, on the left hand side, yeah, and what we actually is, right, what we need, yeah, to enhance, yeah, the contributions of urban planning, yeah, to coastal sustainability. More research, like I mentioned earlier, that we do, urban planners do, yeah, but we need analysis, we need the research to support, and that is where that evidence-based planning is very, very important. Yeah, we know how planning has been influenced, heavily influenced by political issues, for instance. At the same time, yeah, we have inclusive and participatory approach, and it has to include like all stakeholders. No one should be left behind, even for the businesses. Yeah, we learned from our project, for instance, like in NetConfish, is that right? How we focus on the community level participation and engagement, and then to realize later that right, the businesses need to be included. Yeah, because they have the huge influence, yeah, on the sustainability of the coastal area. Then last but not least, the close monitoring and sustainable components, yeah, through nexus thinking, which is really, really important. Yeah, we have to think, right, not in silo and not in disciplinary, discipline based, but it has to be, yeah, multi and also interdisciplinary. So these are the ends of my sharing. Yeah, basically it's here just a selected, right, reference if you are interested, right, to explore further about these topics then. So thank you. And let me close this and over to you then, Amy.
Wonderful. Thank you, Hong Jing. Oh, but I'm hearing an echo in the background.
No, it's fine.
Okay, so thanks very much, Hong Jing. I think that was a very insightful introduction into urban planning, particularly the interface between land and coast, right? I'm highlighting that. So the time that I have is currently 3:50, and we're aiming to wrap this up in an hour. So we are now at the Q&A session. And let me just check my, so I don't see anything right now at the chat box. But anyone who has questions, and we particularly wanted to encourage our COASTAR fellows to be using this opportunity to direct your questions to our expert here, Dr. Goh Hong Jing. So Hong Jing, maybe I will kickstart this question.
Sorry, excuse me. We actually have one question coming.
Oh, we do?
A bunch of questions coming from Mr. Damien Sanam in the chat box. All right. Okay. Can you see
My
it?
bad. I do not. I think it's because
Okay.
I lost the connection and I came back and I lost the track. So maybe Sun
It's
Lung, you
okay.
can raise those
Sure.
questions.
I'll read it out for you. Okay. So this is from Mr. Damien Sanam from Pertubuhan Perlindungan Khazanah Alam. So he said, great presentation, Dr. Goh. Thank you. And my questions as below. Reclamation project off the coast of our mainland. A. How useful are our EIAs, EMPs, and SIAs when it comes to a reclamation projects? This is the first question.
Maybe I will respond first, then only go to the next questions. Is that all right? Maybe it's better.
Yes.
Yeah, I tend to be very forgetful. Don't blame the COVID, but blame my age then.
Sure.
Okay, I think thanks again, right, Damien, is that? Yeah, Damien, for the question. So when we talk about how useful, I think so to an extent, right, it may be not easy to generalize. Yeah, the main reasons is that, right, if you take a look, right, that is already a flaw when we talk about EIA itself. Why? EIA is only, right, being our practice here in Malaysia is only being implemented or introduced when there is a project are being identified. And who actually, right, provide or prepare the EIA report? It is the consultant. Who actually hire the consultant? That is already, right, a very core flaws, right, in terms of its implementation. For instance, is that if our developers of this reclamation land make it a peninsular land then rather than islands, nah? Then departments of environment says that, oh, your developments, right, definitely falls under, right, you know, during the screening and scoping, definitely is going to the list that you need a detailed EIA. Yeah, and you have, and I as a developer, and I will hire a consultant. No matter how difficult it is, do you think that, right, is it realistic that a consultant actually will say that this project is not viable? That is the fundamental flaws itself, right, in the EIA practice. And that's the reason why when it comes to the EMP, it always try to, you know, you have this different approach, right, for mitigation. You try to avoid, you try to reduce, you try to replace, you try to restore, or you try to compensate. Yeah, but if you take a look on our current practices that we do not have the strategic levels assessment, which is done at a level before any project is being implemented or even being proposed, and that is not there. At the same time, our EIA is practice now is not able to capture, yeah, significantly the accumulative impacts. Giving an example, we have, right, one reclamation projects now. So this EIA's report is going to propose the EMPs for this particular project. Who is going to monitor and then work on the accumulated projects of other on the next door reclamation projects then? Yeah, and that's the reason why, right, the strategic environmental assessment is very, very important, but it is also, right, some things that, for instance, if we see, right, from a different, we see from the stakeholders' perspective, some things that, right, people do not want to do at the same time, unrealistic. But this is some things that, right, in theory and ideally is actually, right, help to provide a more comprehensive assessment already prior to any projects are being proposed. Yeah, so it's not only the rubber stamp thing. Yeah, to an extent, I have to say is that, right, even the developers who see it as, I work in a developer firms before, like for 4 years, I know how it works. Yeah, so this is the mentality then, but of course at the same time is that right, do we have the mechanism to actually right in long run trying to change that mentality? That's right, it is not to actually stop them from development, but we want a development that is more ethical. Yeah, I think that is where that's right. I think education and also right, you know, that's a lot of this inclusive spendings come in because right, you know, when we have the dialogues, when we have any dialogues right on planning permission, for instance, you always see the dichotomy, the developers, the consultants, and the communities. There's no one actually right being the ones that actually are trying to bridge and see both, and then to start thinking that what can be achieved as a consensus. And this is where that's why I put on the what we call Rupert's helix approach, where actually right academia actually right can play a role. Yeah, I hope that answer your questions then.
Great job in tackling that difficult question. So as a follow-on from Damien's questions, maybe I'll read the next two. So his question was, do our EIAs currently contain or include hydrographic dynamic modeling studies? And then follow-up question is, if yes, does this study actually influence approvals or rejections of the project by Department of Environment, DOE? Yeah, You want to take a stab at answering that, Hong Ching?
Okay, I'm a social scientist. I might not know exactly what is hydrographic dynamics modeling, but what I could share is that, right, for instance, during the scoping exercise, that is where that's right, the EIA consultants who comes in and they would propose what that need to be conducted, yeah, to identify the assessment. Because when they talk about the assessment itself, right, in terms of the techniques, yeah, it can be modeling, it can be right, what you call that, right, experiments, based on experiment, simulation, professionals' experience as well. And the next question is that, right, does this study actually influence approval? I think my response to your first question actually is right, in a way, answer that as well. In the EMP, it is not possible because it's the consultant. It's like, okay, if I say that this project is not viable, will I get my fee, consultancy fee? It's very, very ironic when we talk about EIAs, right? The nature of it itself. Yeah.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Hong Ching. Maybe we will skip the. I think, Damien, you were asking about can this study accurately predict coastal erosions, etc.? That's actually pertaining to the hydrographic modeling. Am I correct? Yeah, I think your next two questions is also about the hydrographic modeling. Yeah, so maybe
that's right, ma'am. See, because we have been experiencing. If I may I?
Yes, please go
Okay,
ahead.
I'll make it very quick. You see, because coastal erosion does not happen right next to where the reclamation is being done. You know, it can happen up to 50 kilometers away, north or south of the location, and then it does not recognize borders. You know, if coastal reclamation is being done in Malacca, you will see effects in Negeri Sembilan or Johor. So from what Dr. Goh has mentioned so far, sincerity and being truthful to the taxpayers is not visible here. So do we need a change of law to get this done, Doctor? That'll be it. Then I'm done. Thanks.
We will need that definitely. The things is that, right, if I recall, back in 2017 or 18 already, that's an amendments that, right, was intended to make on the environmental law. Yeah, but I think so far, right, it has not been any progress since then.
Yes.
Yeah, so that is also one thing as well. That's right, we need to see. One thing is that, right, for me, this is more on the enforcement part. But personally, I think it's also as an academician and also as a social scientist, what I believe is that, right, we put this change, but then, right, we engage and empower our communities, right, to do it. And not only empowering them, right, to go against it, but also later on, they will be the leaders of our country. we have to really focus on that part. When we talk about climate change, we talk about all the environmental issues, is that why we say the youth have the rights now and their voice has to be very loud is because, right, they are going to so-called enjoy the damage or the environments that has been being damaged by us now. And they are the ones that are going to experience it and face it and live with it. Yeah. So I think that is the part that where I really like how education play a role. And also at the same time, I think recently, for instance, even World Resource Institute actually published articles about the significance of behavioral science now. When we talk about knowledge, we have to talk about attitude and how that actually have a change in behavior. You know, for instance, maybe I go back and I still, a very little things. I never ever thinks about my water footprint. I never ever thinks about my carbon footprint, even though I have the knowledge. Yeah, those are the things that, yeah. And how to make that eventually become a way of life. I think that will be some things that we really want that.
Thanks, Hong Ching. And thanks, Damien, for your question. I think those are really great questions, right? I mean, what happens in one site, when we're talking about, the coastal environment is not a spot-based or a location-based problem, right? It's actually really kind of taking all along the coast. We had conversations with the Department of Forestry talking about mangrove restoration. And basically, they were saying that whatever activities take place north or south, reclamation activities specifically, they can affect the hydrodynamics and then also, impact whatever that's upstream or downstream depending on the current movement. So this is definitely a challenge. And I think that because, as Hong Ching puts out, land matters, and I would say, land matters, including the coastal waters as well, is kind of under the state authority, right? So every state makes their decisions. And I think this is fundamentally, one of the problems or issues that need to be discussed. And I think, Hong Ching, you outlined some really interesting pathway, right, for academic. Just at the moment, but we can hopefully see a greater change happening relatively soon. I'm going to move on to the next question that Mariam has. How realistic is it for physical planning to be transitioned to more evidence-based, inclusive of stakeholders and involving closer monitoring within the next 10 years? So if we're thinking about a framework of 10 years, Hong Ching, what do you think about where we are and where we can be heading towards?
I think this question is that it reminds me to what there was a guy actually asked Dalai Lama, do all the humans, with all what have been done on Earth regarding the, environmental degradation, will we all go to heaven? And he said, yes, without even 1 second of thought. And I start thinking that, we have been living in this very, very, how to say, negative aura, even though the intentions is good, because we want to be, we want to have a better world. But isn't it better if we put things into a more constructive way? Sometimes it's that because of the more we care, sometimes we become more emotional about it. But not to realize that sometimes it pushes people away as well. This is at the individual, and I think that for the stakeholders to start talking to each other, there must be a ways that can be actually bridged them. Yeah.
So basically, one of the viable way forward, as you're suggesting, is sort of like bringing different people that have perhaps at this moment, I don't want to say bipolar, but polarized thoughts on the matter, and bringing them to a table to have a conversation. This is interesting because I had a discussion with my husband, who's actually an environmental consultant, and he's saying that, all these, talks about coming together, having consensus and stuff like that, it sounds sometimes a little bit wishy-washy, but I do think that, that is an important starting point, right? To get people to actually hash out ideas and thoughts. We don't have to agree on everything, but I think that, I would imagine that everybody wants a good earth to live in. I cannot imagine that there are people that thinking that there's plan B, that I want to move to Mars or something like that, right? We have only one earth and we have to take good care of it. And I guess, to wrap this up, Hong Ching, what what I'm personally interested, right? If you have a bucket list, right, and you could take a city in Malaysia to sort of, redesign, right, to sort of, be an example of what you imagine to be coastal sustainability, what would that place be, and what do you think you would do differently, or what would you do in terms of the planning to improve this city to be sort of like an exemplary city with sustainable coastal and urban planning?
Thanks, Amy. When you post that question, I was thinking, this is a dilemma. Is a personal preference or the professional preference? And I don't mind to have this mix then, because that is where the connections actually comes in. Yeah, remember, good humans will make a good science. Yeah, a good scientist is not necessarily a good human in a way. Yeah, I really like to look at Iskandar region then, because of all the attention they got, and it has been very contested areas. Chinese, when say we believe that where and there's a chance. I really like. It's always Sabah is always too close to my heart. That's one thing that, and at the same time, Kota Kinabalu already have these marine parks. Yeah, but at the same time, there's so much of issues and challenges. Yeah, that can be sorted. And what I can do is that, again, is about the marine biosphere reserve. That is something that is so fascinating, and I really like that concept and how it brings things together. Of course, there will be foreseen many challenges, but at the moment, we don't have any challenges. People just do not like changes. That's all. Yeah.
Thanks, Hongqing. It really sounds like we can have like another hour-long discussion or discourse on this very interesting but controversial topic. And I don't know that we have all of the answers, but hopefully with all of the research work that we hope to be able to devote to this, we'll have a better sense on how to tackle and move towards a more coherent solution. So I really want to thank everyone for coming to this session, and thanks so much, Hongqing, for sharing your expert knowledge on this very important topic. So I'm going to pass the time now over to Sun Long for some closing housekeeping. So I'm over to you, Sun Long.
Thank you, Amy. All right. So I'll go through a very short poll for everyone. Okay. So for the first one, is what percentage of the information shared was new to you? So I'll give everyone 2 minutes to answer this.
Sorry, Sun Long, I'm not seeing anything launching in poll-wise. I'm not sure if anybody else is.
Is the poll appear for everyone? I think this is a poll for attendees. So the
okay, sorry, my bad.
not okay.
Okay, got it. Can we have an indication from the public, our participants, if you have the poll showing up on your screen?
Yeah, the poll is showing, and we are participating. I see so far 12 responses.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Damien, for letting me know.
Thank you. Now I will launch the second poll. That is, how satisfied were you with the speaker and presentations? Thank you. Now I'll launch the last one. Were you happy with the time for discussion during sessions?
So this is our first time experimenting with this method for obtaining survey, because we understand, you know, everyone's time is highly valuable, and we really appreciate the feedback that we can get, you know, with it by using a simple method. But if you do have additional comments for us, please do feel free to drop in the chat box on specific feedback if you do have one, and also, you know, how we can improve our future offerings. And you should see on your screen right now as well one of the slides that we didn't manage to go through earlier during introduction. So I really wanted to make a special mention of the COASTAR Fellows that we have recruited for our program, a very diverse group of people from all around Malaysia. And as you know, in accordance to Hong Ching's aspirations, you know, part of the thing is really educating our future leaders, and this is really at the heart of our COASTAR. So thank you all of the co-stars, you know, for joining on this journey, and I hope that you found this session beneficial, as well as, you know, our our guests from outside of our co-star. So thank you very much for your time. And I think, Sonlu, you mentioned about taking a photo too, right? For the session.
Yes. If everyone, all the participants can turn on your camera, and then we'll have a very short photo session to capture everyone's.
Sorry, I'm in the department right now, and there's a lot of chaos happening right now. But I guess it's kind of awesome because, you know, you have live interactions here. And thank you everyone for keeping your camera on. It's good to see faces. Maybe Sonlung, you want to minimize the slides, that way you can get maximum.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. One moment. Okay, I'm trying to squeeze everyone in. Okay.
No countdown.
So I think that's all. Yeah, at the moment I think everyone can see we are all sitting in the seminar hall here, right? Okay, I still see that until some of us are still haven't turned on their camera. If you otherwise, if not, then we will just take this picture with this. All right. Say cheese. 1, 2, 3. Yes. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Right.
Thank you again, everybody. Please stay in touch with us, and we should be having some interesting sessions. So we have coming up in about 2 weeks' time. We'll be talking about proposal development with our co-researchers from Edinburgh, Napier University. So it'll be an exciting session. So stay tuned. Take care, everybody. Bye, and stay safe.
Bye-bye.